Beverly, our goal at DHS is to assist our clients to become self-sufficient, and this, of course, requires motivation for the clients to change. What are some techniques that you have that would facilitate that motivation and change in our clients?
Well, I've given a lot of thought to the idea of change, because it seems to me that when we're trying to get our clients to do something different with their lives, we're asking them to engage in change. And I think we have to appreciate how hard that is. That change is very difficult to make, because change requires you to leave the comfort of what you know and try the unknown. Now, where motivation comes in is that motivation seems to be the set of forces that push us out of our comfort zones to try something new. Now, here's what seems to be true. The longer you stay in a comfort zone, the harder it is to get out. So those of us who work with people who are long-term welfare recipients or long-time doing anything, any particular behavior, have to recognize that the longer you've been in your comfort zone, the harder it's going to be to get out. So motivation for me then was the set of forces that will push people out of that comfort zone. Now the challenge becomes this. How do you find people's motivation? Most of us have tried giving it to people. This is what you should, this is why you should want to do this. You ought to want to do it for your kids. You ought to want to do it because you want to be independent. You ought to. Well, that's me telling folks what their motivation is. So it finally began to dawn on me that maybe instead of trying to give them motivation, which seemed to be way too difficult, that maybe what I could do is find their motivation. Now the question becomes, what is this motivation? So, two things. We seem to change, move out of our comfort zones, try something new when we want something badly enough to do it. We also seem to change when we are miserable enough to move. Well, then I thought, which most often initiates change? And the one that most often initiates change is misery. So now, typically, our first questions to people are, what are your goals? But that's not the first motivator. The first motivator seems to be misery. So we're changing the question, the first set of questions then, to looking for what people don't like about their lives. Okay, where is the misery? Are they miserable enough at this point to start making some changes? Now, we're also going to look at goals too, but I think that becomes secondary in terms of what we're going to do. We're going to look for misery first, then goals. Then the other thing I had to understand was this. Work is not a motivator. School is not a motivator. Money even is not a motivator. It is what those things do for us, what they buy us. So I simply stopped asking people, do you want to work? Because they're lying to me. I don't want to work. They don't either. But what we want is what work does, what work buys. Work buys stuff for me, stuff for my kids. Work buys independence. Work buys status. Work buys a sense of accomplishment. Work buys security. Work buys social relationships. So those are the motivators. This is the difficulty with motivation, is you have to go down some levels. It's not, do you want to go to school? What would school buy you? What would it do for you that you don't have now? So that's the challenge, I think, of trying to, first of all, understand change, understand motivation, and then look for the motivations people have. Now, here's the good news. Every client has motivation. That's the good news. The challenge now, it's not always the motivation we want them to have, but they've got it. The challenge for us is finding their motivation and being able to use their motivation to get them to make some changes.